Hi everyone, thank you and welcome for joining in on this product walkthrough of Sprinto. I'm Aarti Srinivasan and with me I have Suraj who will be taking over to give you a walkthrough of the Sprinto platform, especially with relation to three vital use cases. Suraj has been a part of Team Sprinto and has helped over hundreds of companies get InfoSec ready. And today he's going to walk you through how we solve InfoSec the Sprinto way. Please add your questions in the chat box and Suraj will be getting to them. And if you have any other queries and you want to reach out, I'll be linking his emails and like all helpful links in this through the course of this webinar. So feel free to access them. Suraj, over to you.
All right. Thanks, Aarti. First of all, let me welcome all of you to the webinar. Thanks for joining in. And I'm a solution consultant at Sprinto. I'm an ISO lead auditor myself as well. And as Aarti rightly mentioned, I'm just going to pick up a few areas of compliance today that seem to be complex, daunting, and try and give you an idea of how Sprinto solves that for you. Let me share my screen so you're able to see what I'm presenting. Right. Aarti, is my screen visible?
Yep, I can see it.
Perfect. All right. So before I actually get started, just wanted to highlight a few points about why should you adopt a compliance automation platform. A lot of people have this question or a doubt in mind as to, hey, well, why do I need to automate? I can do it the manual way. Just a few points here. Automation of compliance helps you in a lot of ways, and doing it manually is a lot of cumbersome, a lot of work to do. And today, compliance is no longer about doing it one shot and then forgetting about it, right? We all understand that compliance is not one time. You need to do this day in and day out. To ensure that you are continuously compliant, you need to have automation in place. It's not otherwise possible for you to make sure that you're continuously compliant. You're protecting your customers' data continuously. You're protecting all of your assets continuously, right? And second or most important thing is without automation, you're not aware of what's really going on, right? You can't keep an eye on every single asset of yours, your infra, your code repositories, your devices, and so on. So automation gives you or brings about a lot of awareness. So it becomes easy for you to understand what the gaps are, what you need to do, where you need to do, how do you handle your security issues, and so on, right? And of course, automation saves a lot of time and effort. Today, we all know how expensive our engineering resources are. So you don't want them to be spending time on compliance. So just let the automation tool take care of it for you, right? And another important point here is today, compliance is not being looked at in a single way. It's not like, you just have to do one compliance. All companies today are selling their product solutions across the globe. So we have customers coming in from US, Europe, Middle East, Southeast Asia. So that requires companies today to do a lot of compliances, right? So I've seen companies doing ISO, SOC 2, GDPR, CPRA, variety of other frameworks, right? So when you're involving multiple compliances, how do you manage all of this? Right. So how do you map the controls? How do you keep all the evidences for different compliances in place? How do you keep yourself audit ready for multiple compliances? Right. So that is where compliance automation kicks in. It gives you a lot of ability for you to map all of these common controls. It helps you manage all the evidences, so you don't have to do a lot of things manually. Right. And another very important thing automation tools do is they give you a lot of visibility, right? So you just go and see the dashboard. You get a bird's eye view of where you stand on each compliance. You very clearly see what the gaps are. It could be as simple as, hey, there are two people who have not acknowledged policies. A couple of them have not done their training. So you get complete visibility of where you stand on compliance, what the gaps are, what you need to do. Right. Now, moving on, a very quick intro to Sprinto. We are a compliance automation platform, and it's been built for tech companies. So all the nitty-gritties, nuances that it takes for tech companies to do compliances comes built into Sprinto. The whole idea here is to eliminate the gray areas of compliance, make it very easy for you to become compliant and remain continuously compliant. Right. And hundreds of customers trust Sprinto today. And we scaled to more than 20 different frameworks, including SOC 2, ISO, GDPR, HIPAA, PCI, and so on. And the whole platform actually has been built around the requirements of auditors. So everything that the auditor requires comes built into the platform. And Sprinto also has something called a common control framework, right? So all the common controls coming across these compliances has been mapped into the product. So Sprinto makes it a breeze for you to handle or manage multiple compliances. All right. So, moving to the next stage, what I have done for our webinar today is picked up 3 areas of compliance, right? Given the limited time that we have, and I picked up the most daunting, difficult, complex areas of compliance. And I'm going to walk you through each one and tell you how Sprinto simplifies that for you. So the first one I'm picking up here today is the access monitoring, right? So let's first look at what compliance requires you to do under access monitoring. Right. So first, you need to make a list of all the critical systems in the company, your infra, your code repositories, and so on. And then for each of these critical systems, you need to have a strong login mechanism in place. Right. You need to enforce this and you need to track this continuously. Right. And the most commonly used is role-based access. So you need to ensure that there is a role-based access and you track this for all your critical systems. And the access to these systems needs to be reviewed periodically. Right. So within the company, who has access to what? Do the right people have access to the right systems? This needs to be reviewed periodically. And most important, again, is once an employee leaves the company, the admin needs to make sure that the access to all the critical systems that he or she had is being revoked. Right. So, I personally have seen a lot of cases where it's been a couple of months since somebody has left the company, but that person still has access to a few critical systems. And from a compliance perspective, that's very dangerous. Right. So what are the pain points here? Companies today lack the awareness as to what is a critical system. I have 10 systems. Should I call 8 critical? Is it okay for me to say these 2 systems are non-critical? So that's one area where companies get confused often. And even for the critical systems, everything is being done manually. So the access controls, multiple systems, handling who has access to what, all of that is being done manually, which is very time consuming. And most companies today rely only on MFA, right? They say that, hey, I have enabled MFA on all my critical systems and that's about it. So that's not really everything that you need to do. Compliance requires you to do a lot more, right? And there are no reminders, alerts, integrations to enforce or track these protection mechanisms, since a lot of it is done manually, right? And you need to keep reminders, alerts for you to do the periodic reviews. You need to collect evidence. Again, a very painful task that companies have to do today. So if, let's say, you're running your access monitoring reviews every 6 months, you need to collect evidence, keep all of that so that you're ready for your audits, right? And when employees are offboarded, just imagine how painful it is. You have to keep track. As soon as an employee leaves, you have to get a list of what all systems that employee had access to. You need to track each one, make sure that all of those access is revoked, right? Even if one small thing is forgotten, you're drifting from compliance. All right. So now let me walk you through what Sprinto has for access monitoring. All right. Before I hit straight into access monitoring, a very quick intro. This is Sprinto. You start off on the frameworks page. You begin by enabling the frameworks that you need. So be it a SOC 2, ISO, GDPR, HIPAA, whatever framework you need, you just enable them. And Sprinto comes built in with more than 200 different integrations. So we use all of those integrations to monitor your systems for compliance. Right. Now, moving specifically to access control. Sorry, just give me a second. Right, just give me a second. Sorry. Sorry, folks, you just have to give me a minute. Right. While I try to figure this out, let me, continue with what I wanted to present. Apologies for this. Right. I hope my screen is back again. All right. So what I wanted to demonstrate to you is how Sprinto manages this. So there are a couple of things Sprinto does here. First of all, Sprinto makes a list of all the critical systems that you have in your company, like AWS on your infra, the email provider, identity provider, the ticketing tool that you're using, the HRMS tool that you're using, and so on. And for each of these critical systems, Sprinto allows you to configure role-based access. Right? For example, you can tell Sprinto that, hey, only my DevOps team should be given access to AWS. If Sprinto detects anything outside of that, it's going to flag you and alert you that this access is invalid, right? And Sprinto checks if each of these users have enabled MFA on their accounts or not. And Sprinto also integrates with HRMS systems. If you're using an HRMS systems, as soon as you offboard a particular employee, Sprinto will immediately alert you to revoke that employee's access from all the critical systems that he or she had access to. Right. And in cases where you're not using an HRMS, Sprinto allows you to handle onboarding and offboarding of staff members within Sprinto itself. All right. So this is what I wanted to show you as part of access monitoring. Now, moving to the next part, which is risk assessment. Right. This is one of the most complex areas of compliance that companies find it very difficult to do. Let me again call out the requirements of compliance here. One is you need to maintain a risk register, basically make a list of all the risks that you have as a company. And then you need to identify the risk value of each of these risks. How does it impact you? And after that, you need to put in place a mitigating action plan for each of these risks, determine the post likelihood or residual risk treatment plan, and you need to do all of this periodically. Right? Now, what are the pain points here? Creating, updating, maintaining risk register is really very complex. Companies, most of the companies I've seen today do this on Excel sheets, and the Excel sheet never gets updated. It's open during the audit. Once the audit is over, everybody forgets about it. Nothing happens until the next audit. Right? That defeats the whole purpose of doing risk assessments. And a lot of these activities is done manually, which is very, very time consuming. And oftentimes there is lack of clarity on what needs to be the risk mitigation steps. How do you put a score to this? Are the mitigation steps that you've put in, is it really enough? Right. So there's a lot of confusion around this. And again, the management who does the reviews periodically, they really don't know what's going on. So it becomes more like a tick in the box. So you're just doing it for the audits, and that's about it. Right. So let me pull back and see if I can demonstrate this. All right, there we go. All right. So what Sprinto has done here is, automated the entire process of risk assessments and doing the whole risk review part of things. So what we are seeing on your screen now is a library of risks that Sprinto comes built in with. So as a company, you really don't have to sit and figure out what risks you have. You don't have to worry about having covered all of the potential risks. And so for each of these risks, if you feel that in your business scenario, in your case, this is not applicable, you can turn it off. If you feel that, hey, I really have this risk, you can choose how it impacts you. What is the impact value of this risk? And Sprinto automates the mitigation plan as well. So you can define the action plan that you have to mitigate this risk. And then you can choose what the post likelihood is, the residual risk treatment. All of this is automated in Sprinto. Right. And once you have done this, for each of the risks, Sprinto gives you like a risk score. So you very clearly see what the risk score is. Right. And at the end of it, for the management who's doing the reviews periodically, Sprinto throws out a risk matrix. So at a high level, you can see where your risks are concentrated. If any or more or one or more of the risks are going beyond an acceptable level, Sprinto will clearly call that out. So the management clearly know what needs to be done, where the problem is, where they need to focus. Right. So this makes sure that you are continuously monitoring your risks, and the entire risk assessments is automated. Right. Now, moving back to the third area of compliance, which is complex, is of course the audits. Right. I've seen a lot of companies panicking, worrying about when it's time for them to go for audits. In fact, some of the companies have even told me that a couple of weeks before the audit, they actually stop all critical projects. Everybody is focusing only on the audits. Right. So that's a lot of time spent, a lot of time goes during the audits as well. And so what are the requirements here? Straightforward. You need to provide evidence to the auditors against each requirement or each control. This evidence should be in a verifiable format. The auditors should have the ability for them to download all of this evidence. And if you're doing a framework like SOC 2, you need to have historical evidence readily available for the auditors. Right? Now, what are the pain points here? Evidence gathering is done manually. Most of the companies do this on Excel sheets. They put all of things on a Google Drive. And if you have a look at the Google Drive, it has 40, 50 folders. There is evidence, documents, screenshots sitting in different folders, which is very confusing for auditors. Mapping of evidence to controls, again, is a challenge, which is where a lot of time is spent, because the auditors really are looking for evidence for a particular control, and that evidence might be present in 5 different folders, which the auditor is not aware of. So the auditor has meetings after meetings to figure this out. Right. And providing secure access of these evidence to auditors, again, is a challenge, because you're putting it on a Google Drive, making it accessible to multiple people. Right. And of course, for SOC 2 framework, continuous collection of evidence, making sure that evidence is available for a 12-month period is extremely cumbersome, extremely challenging. So these are the pain points. Now, let me try and go back to Sprinto and show you how Sprinto solves this bit for you. So as I mentioned earlier, the whole platform was actually built around the requirements of auditors. Right. In fact, we onboarded auditors first before getting customers. So we have done a lot of automation for our audit partners, and auditors get a dashboard within Sprinto where they can come in and see all of the evidences. And what Sprinto does here is it provides evidence to the auditors the way they want to look at it. Right. Now, if you put yourself in the shoes of an auditor, the auditor has SOC 2 controls or ISO requirements on one side. And for each of those requirements, the auditor is looking for evidence. Right. So that is how Sprinto presents it. Sprinto says, hey, here is the SOC 2 requirement, and this is the internal Sprinto control, and here is the evidence. Right. I'll just take an example. Let's say the auditor wants to see if all the production infra is being monitored. So the auditor has access to live information coming in from, be it your AWS, Google Cloud, Azure accounts. And in the same dashboard, the auditor can go back in time as well. The auditor can go back 1 month, 2 months, 3 months to check the status of these evidences. Again, very critical for your SOC 2 type 2, because you need to provide historical evidence. So the auditor has access to all the evidence required for an audit in a single dashboard, which makes the entire audit process itself very, very efficient and much faster with Sprinto. Right. So I'll quickly skim through this. So all the evidence, be it the policies, the acknowledgement logs, the logs that all the employees have undergone their trainings, right? So all of this is available to the auditors in a single dashboard, right? They can download all of this evidence, right? Verify all of this evidence. So this is the audit dashboard within Sprinto. Right. I'm trying. Yeah. Okay. Access control is back. So going back to what I was talking about, access control, this is where Sprinto makes a list of all the critical systems, your infra, your code repositories, ticketing tool, HRMS tools, and so on. And for each of these systems, if there is an integration available, Sprinto detects who has access. So you can see a list of all the users who have access to each of these systems. And you can add systems manually within Sprinto as well. So Sprinto allows you to add third-party critical systems. We have a library of systems, so you can pick from this and add and manage the access. And for each of the systems, you can define role-based access. So as I said earlier, for AWS, you can say only my DevOps team should have access and so on. Right. And this is where for each user, Sprinto checks if they have valid access. Right. So if Sprinto detects an anomaly, Sprinto says that this access is invalid. It checks if MFA is enabled. And once you offboard an employee, Sprinto will immediately alert you to revoke their access. And Sprinto will track until the access is revoked. All right. Yep. So this is pretty much what I wanted to present. I think we have a couple of minutes left. So happy to take any questions, answer anything that you might have.
Thank you for your time, Suraj. There is a question. Is there any historical evidence needed for GDPR audit?
Okay, good question. GDPR, first of all, is a law. It's not a framework. So there is nobody who can do an audit for GDPR. GDPR is mandatory for you to be compliant or ready with GDPR if you're storing any PII data of EU citizens, right? And unlike ISO or unlike SOC 2, there is no requirement of an external audit for GDPR. Once you have implemented all the GDPR controls, you can self-declare that you are GDPR ready, right? So nobody can certify you for a law, right? And coming to historical evidence, no, you have to ensure that you are following all the guidelines prescribed under GDPR. If you require, there are certain auditors or consultants who do like a GDPR gap assessment, so you can get that done. They will come in and verify if you're following all of the GDPR norms, and after that they give you like a gap assessment report, and that's about it. So there is no need of an external audit.
Got it. Brett has asked, do you also have a database of auditors that you can recommend after the controls, etc., are completed in Sprinto?
Absolutely. So we work with a variety of audit partners across the globe. As I said earlier, we onboarded auditors first before getting customers. So we have a list of audit partners. We will make suggestions as to, we'll give you a list of our audit partners. You can feel free to work with any of them. And all of these audit partners are very comfortable with Sprinto. They have gone through this for hundreds of customers, so they know how Sprinto works, right? Which takes away a lot of effort from you in during the audits as well.
Brent, I hope that answered your question. If you have any follow-ups, you can feel free to ask again. Guys, we're at the 5-minute check. Any other questions? Anything that Suraj can help with it? Okay, we have a question. How does Sprinto monitor that we are compliant with regard to data subject access request?
Roshan, again, I think you're referring specifically to GDPR, right? So let me put it this way. Sprinto does not have access to any of your data or any of your code or anything like that. Sprinto has a read-only access at a configuration level, right? Which means if you're storing your customers' data, let's say on AWS server, for example, Sprinto will monitor for what security you've put on top of AWS if all the required checks are running on AWS. So we don't have access to your data. We will only be telling you that all the requirements of compliance on a production server is being monitored. That's about it.
Okay.
So yeah.
I hope that answered your question, Roshan. If not, feel free to answer. Give us a follow up here. I have a couple more questions, Suraj.
Yeah.
Yeah, Sriram's asking, don't you have a repository of customizable policies for ISO 27001?
We do. So Sprinto comes built in with all the policy templates that is required for ISO, SOC 2, GDPR, and all the other frameworks. So these templates are readily available in Sprinto. Yes, they are customizable. You can add your logo, and even the wordings of these policies can be customized. If you have your own policies, you can upload them and manage them within Sprinto as well. Another very cool feature of Sprinto is these policies are actually linked internally to procedures in Sprinto. Right? I'll take a quick example. Let's say you have a data backup policy and you're currently taking data backup once in 30 days. People usually tend to write this in their policies. They say, hey, I'll take backup of my data every 30 days. Let's say 6 months down the line, you change it to 15 days. Companies forget to change their policies. Right? In Sprinto, to avoid this, we have actually linked the policies to procedure. And whenever a procedure is updated, the policies always reflect the current procedure.
Shriram, I hope that answered your question. Feel free to give any follow ups. Yeah. Is it a one cost for all controls, that is PCI, SOC, etc., or are they priced as modules?
All right. So Sprinto's subscription pricing actually depends on the overall complexity of the program. So yes, the number of frameworks is one parameter that determines pricing. Uh, yeah. So you're right. It depends on how many frameworks you're doing with Sprinto. The pricing changes based on that.
Okay. Hope that answered your question. Any other?
I see
Yes.
one from Shailendra. Do you store the data? If yes, does the client have access to delete it from Sprinto? Yeah. We are storing your data, but not sensitive data. We are storing, I mean, as I said, we have access only to your configurations, metadata, and so on. That is being stored on our AWS servers. So I'll answer this in two ways. One is Sprinto as a company, we are ISO, SOC 2, and GDPR compliant. So yes, we are taking all the measures that it requires to protect the data that we are storing. And obviously, you can request Sprinto to delete all of that data. We are going to give you a confirmation on that as well.
Okay. Another question around GDPR. A key aspect of GDPR is data localization, but there are exceptions. How does Sprinto help with that?
Yeah, there is a new change in that coming, wherein you're allowed to store data in US servers as well. But at this point in time, yes, GDPR requires all of the data to be stored on or in within EU. And I mean, Sprinto cannot help you in in a way as to how can Sprinto ensure that all of your data is being stored in EU. That's just a guideline that Sprinto will tell you, and you need to follow.
Okay. Yes. Do we have any other questions? Anything else that you wanted to ask with regard to risk assessment or audit dashboards? Uh, like how are we mapping controls and how many frameworks are we supporting? New ones that are on the pipeline. We are. Suraj is the person to ask about all of this. Um, okay. So we're just going to have one more minute where I'm just going to give you some links that would help you guys to reach out to us in case you need it. So you can reach out to Suraj at Sprinto.com. He would be the best person for you to connect and discuss your compliance needs further. And if you want to get in touch with any of our other, like for instance GDPR or PCI compliance experts, just reach out to me and I'll be happy to connect you with them. I'm Aarti and it's Aarti@sprinto.com. You can I will just loop you in with someone who will help you understand the scope of that particular compliance framework and what you need to do for your company. And then we can provide you with a customizable framework plan that can also be helpful. If you're new to compliance and you're a company with less than 20 employees, we have a Sprinto Ignite program where you get either SOC 2 or ISO 27001 compliance framework for you to kickstart your compliance journey, and that comes with full built-in audit support and like compliance expertise. So that's something that if you want to get on, please reach out to us, or please reach out to Suraj, who would be the right person to take that forward. In case so yes, this session is recorded. I will be sending you the recordings by tomorrow. If you need any other questions or like anything else, reach out to us. If not, I think we will be wrapping up this session. Suraj, thank you so much for taking the time, and thank you for walking us through the platform as well. And I hope everyone that it clarified your doubts and clarified your questions. And take care. Thank you.
Thank you guys for joining in. Thank you.
Thank you.